Okay, maybe this is better. Let's try this again. I mean, I'm not technically late, but I just tried to get on and something happened. I don't know if it's the internet that was being wonky, so I had to take it off Wi-Fi. So I'm just waiting and hoping that some peeps pop on here relatively shortly. Maybe anybody coming? At least so I know that this is working. Usually people pop on pretty fast. Well, people might also be confused about the fact that I had another live feed somewhere else. So I'm gonna wait and see if people pop on. Hopefully, if anybody was confused, I had a live feed that kind of went live, but didn't because my internet went wonky, so I had to cancel that one and then re-pop up with this one. So hopefully people don't get confused by that one. So I'm gonna give people a couple minutes to kind of find their way here, because I had lots of people that were excited about this. So I don't want people to get confused by the videos. So, yeah, Gabriella, good morning. Okay, good. People seem to be finding out that I screwed up with technology. Actually, I'm pretty sure that retrograde is here. So there you go. There's our first issue with technology. Hey, Kelly. Hi, how's everybody doing? I figured we'd give people a couple minutes to pop in before there we go. Okay. Did you guys see, was there another live video that popped up and then went away? Hi. Little trash kids. Well, hi. Hello, Amethyst Wish. Hi, Louise. Oh, from Denmark. Hi. How are ya? Good. Okay, I feel better. I was like, oh my God, I done messed up. Nobody's gonna be able to come. Okay, you did see it. It didn't even go live on my end, so then I had to turn off Wi-Fi, and then when I turned it back on, it said that I was live, but the entire screen was gray, so I figured that's kind of where people went for a minute, so I thought I'd give you guys a couple minutes. Bring myself some, or drink myself some coffee, wake up a little bit. Granted, I mean, I've been up since 6. My little girl came in my room at 6 o'clock, so, but, you had to refresh my YouTube page. Okay, so, but it's here. We're here. Here we are. This is the place. Today we are having our very first live book club review. I'm really excited about this. Well, you guys know how I do with series, so as of right now, I'm really hoping that it all works. Hi, Janet. How are ya? So basically, if you are new to all of this, what we are doing is every month we choose a book. This month, the book was chosen for you. Next month, prior to this video, there were 3 different places that you could go to vote between 2 different books on which was chosen. I have the results, and I will tell you guys at the end of this video what the next book is for next month. We will reconvene in a month. You know, we'll have that month to read the next book, and then we will talk about it. So for this video, we are talking about Serpent and Dove by Shelby Morin, and I am super excited. I've got my little notebook here of little notes that I wrote down so I don't go off on random tangents, so I don't forget things. So I'm excited to hear what you guys think. You guys know me, I'm excited to talk about books. I feel like lately that's what kind of been, hi Nickel Brad, hey, how are you, girl? I feel like that's kind of what my channel has turned into lately is books, and I apologize for people that don't really care about books. You guys know me, and I just kind of talk about what I'm interested in and what's happening in my life at the time. And then I actually had somebody recently on this past video that I just posted yesterday ask when I was going to be doing more witchcraft and more crafty videos, and I feel like that's fair. So I mean, they're coming, they are. I just, fall time is my time for coffee and books. So Okay, so we are 5 minutes in. Your coffee mug's so cute. Thanks, my resting witch face. Thanks. I picked it. Usually I do my narwhal cup, but it's dirty, and so I picked this specifically for today. Okay. All right, so we are 5 minutes in. So first of all, I'm going to let anybody know that is in this chat right now. We are going to be talking about Serpent and Dove, and this is a full spoiler-filled review and conversation. So for people that have not finished the book, or if you plan on reading it in the future and you haven't read it yet, or however it may be, I'm just letting you know right now that this conversation and all conversations part of this book club in the future are full of spoilers. We are going to be talking about the twists of the book. We are going to be talking about spoilers. So I'm giving you a little forewarning right now, and then as we get into like the twists and turns portion of it where we kind of talk about that stuff, I'll remind people again, because I hate things being spoiled for me. And so when I see somebody is online and I really like that YouTuber and I go and watch, you know, I like having that little bit of heads up that, oh shit, they're talking about a book that I want to read and they're going to be talking about spoilers, so I'm going to hop out. So let's get going. So, Serpent and Dove by Shelby Morin. This book was originally, I found out about it through Emma Books here on YouTube. She's like one of my favorite booktubers that I have found so far. And it was like one of her top books she was excited about for the year. I found out about it back in February and pre-ordered it and was super excited about it. And then I was like, no, I really don't need this book. So then I put it on my Christmas wish list. Well, then the rave and hype behind it was too much for me to bear, so I ended up getting it. So basically, just kind of flip open my, there we go. That way at least I got my shit open. So in a nutshell, as you guys who are here hopefully have read Serpent and Dove, and I'm not spoiling things for you. Serpent and Dove is a book about Louise LeBlanc. Also, I do not speak French. I've never taken French in school. It was all Spanish. This book is full of French words, French everything. So if you want to correct me on how to say things in the comments, please feel free to do so. I will not take offense to it, but just know that I have no French knowledge whatsoever. So all of my pronunciation of these things are probably going to be extremely wrong, and I apologize. I actually looked last night trying to find pronunciations on a lot of these things, and I couldn't find any, so you're just going to have to deal with my really bad pronunciation. So anyway, you have Lou, or Louise LeBlanc, who is a witch, and she ends up having to get married to a witch hunter who is Reed Diggory. He is a Chaucer, basically a holy witch hunter under the direction of the Archbishop in the town of oh my god, hold on, Cesarine. There's like Chaucer's and Cesarine and you know, the chateaus and all that fun stuff. Hi, Melanie. So right off the bat, when I started reading this book, one thing that I noticed in the first chapter is when you start reading it, a lot of information gets thrown at you. There's a lot of French words thrown around that don't really have a lot of explanation behind them. There's a lot of names, a lot of characters come in really fast. You get thrown right into what's happening. But even with all of that, I felt like she wrote it in a way to where I was able to follow along really well, which I was surprised of. I remember reading it going, wow, there's a lot of shit happening, but this is the first time that, you know, I've read this much information, and it still wasn't information overload. I was able to follow pretty well what was happening and kind of keep the character straight on who was who and what was going on. So I really appreciated that. I really liked Shelby's writing style. I thought that everything kept it really interesting. Hi, Elizabeth from Holland. So we meet Lou right off the bat. So the thing about Lou that I loved is I found a lot of me in Lou. She's strong-willed, she's sassy, she's fiery, she's stubborn, she's wild, she has a loud and extremely filthy mouth, especially in the time period that they're in, where ladies were ladies and they wore dresses and they were very proper and they listened to their husband and they were seen and not heard. You know, Lou was a loudmouth and she was yes, Lou is a queen. She absolutely is. She is very crass. She's very, you know, fuck this and shit and, you know, like whatever she thought came out of her mouth. She didn't really have a filter, which was amazing. I absolutely loved Lou, and Alora actually sent me a message the other day, and she's not going to be able to be here for this one because she didn't quite finish the book yet and didn't want it spoiled for her, but she wrote to me and was like, oh my God, Lou is my kind of witch. And I said, I know. She is not only my kind of witch, but she's my kind of lady, woman. She's not even a lady. She is a woman. Like, don't mess with her. And Melanie, that's exactly what I thought when I read it. I was like, Lou has got to be an Aries. Like, she is just a loudmouth bitch, and I absolutely, but you couldn't help but loving her. You couldn't help absolutely adoring everything about her. So you have Lou, lover. Then you have Reed. Now, Reed Diggory is the captain of the Chaucers, however, if you know how to say it, send me something, because I don't know. We're going to go with Chaucer. We're going to go real Northern Michigan. Sorry, I'm not French. Well, I am French. I'm a little bit French, but I don't speak it. So Reed Diggory is the captain of the Chaucers. So he is basically the Archbishop's right-hand man. They live in the town of Cesarine, which is which the witches there are feared, and they are burned at the stake. And Reed lives under the tenet of "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," and this is something that he has been brought up with. I think it's like Chaser. I think it might be Shazur, like razor, chaser. I'm okay. That's fine. I'm good with that. Y'all tell me. I don't know. My talking is just gonna get worse as I have more coffee, just so you know. So, you know, he was an orphan who was brought into the situation from the Archbishop and basically raised in that type of environment. He has killed witches. He's very good at his job. And basically, as we all have read, please tell us where you got your mug. I think I got it at like Marshall's or Walmart or something like that. It was like a real cheap place that I got it. So Lou and Reed meet. They bump into each other on the streets for the first time during this. It was kind of like a witch invasion, you know. The Les Dames Blanches, I think, basically like one of the main covens in town that people are absolutely terrified of. They come into the town and start terrorizing some of the citizens because of something that happened in the past with the King's line. So they're terrorizing people. Lou's like, fuck this, I'm getting out of Dodge. So she's running away because all of the Chasers are coming to rein in the witches. And she is a witch. Now, she has ran away from her coven, and she is hiding. She has become a thief in Cesarine. She's hiding in a theater attic, and she has given up witchcraft. She hasn't been using her magic. Excuse me, but the Chasers, if that's how you pronounce it, I'm going to go with you, Nickelbrand. They still, you know, they're still terrifying, because if they do catch her, I mean, it's an instant death. It's immediate. You're getting burned at the stake. So they kind of briefly run into each other, and she at the time is dressed as a man, um, which was, I felt like, a pretty great scene anyway. Well, then later on, you have, you know, the whole burglary gone wrong, where, you know, Reed is chasing her down. They end up tumbling out in the middle of a theater production. He's on top of her, and the crowd goes nuts because it basically looks like you have this man of extremely high holy standing, who is, from what it looks like in the crowd, he's basically trying to rape or molest this poor woman who comes out on the stage. So the archbishop at the time is like, okay, we can't have this. So you either have to, so either Lou's going to jail or you guys have to get married. So this looks like this is an okay thing. This is a husband taking care of his wife for, you know, disciplining her for getting out of line, instead of this being what it actually was. So when that first thing came about, I was really, you know, I was stunned that that was the archbishop's first line of action was, well, then you're just gonna have to marry her because that's the only way. And it's like, you know, I was kind of thrown off because it's like, I know that was the premise of the story, but that you know, you have this high holy man, and he sees Reed, I feel like he sees him as his son, and he's just going to marry him off to this lowly thief. So so later on, you know, as you learn more, and so we kind of have some spoilers here. As you learn more and you get through the book and you come back to this scene, some of the things that made me wonder were, okay, first of all, the archbishop, got spoilers here, the archbishop, we find out later on through an enormous twist, is Lou's father. Which was like, what? So at that time, I don't think that the archbishop knew who Lou was, and that was his daughter. But what if it was? What if he did know at the time? Because I really don't feel like it was very clear, because I remember later on the steps, the whole scene with Morgan, which was her mother, and, you know, the scene that Les Dames Blanches, that coven of witches, put on, where it basically told the story of how Morgan came upon and seduced the archbishop, became pregnant with Lou, and, you know, the archbishop's eyes were like saucers. So I don't know if that was the point where he made the connection in his mind that Lou was his daughter, or if he's been watching her his whole life, or her whole life, and at that time knew that Lou was his daughter, because the connotations behind that would be insane. Because it's like, you are marrying one of your right-hand man to, it is your daughter, and it would mean that he chose his daughter over his tenants because he knew that Lou was a witch. So, Nutter Butter's there. Was anyone else thrown off when he randomly farts at the theater? I was like, what? I did, and that was one of the parts that kind of made me laugh, because I'm a gross person anyway, and I like stuff like that. But I did like the kind of things like that she put into the book. You know, where just like crude humor that I thought was great. I thought he knew it was her daughter when he married her off to Reed to also protect her. That was kind of my thought. He raised the man, he wanted to marry his daughter. And that's kind of what I thought, but I mean, then that completely changes by the end of the book. You go back, because you don't really think about that at the time because you don't know. So you go back, you finish the book, and you're like, oh my God, you have this archbishop who just comes across as this dick who only cares about killing witches. But realistically, he's this caring father who, while he really can't let anybody know that he has a witch for a daughter, he's being a father figure by marrying his one and only daughter, who is a witch, to his right-hand man, you know, his favorite chaser, and marrying them together. And like, you know, at the time I'm like, this is the most random shit ever. Why wouldn't they just put her to death? Or why wouldn't they just, you know, say exactly what happened or explain it to the crowd? Why is marriage the answer to this? But as you go on, you're like, oh my God, he was marrying his daughter off to keep her safe, not only because she's a witch, and he's, you know, what better place to hide a witch than right under the noses of the other holy people, but to also save her from her own mother, who is trying to kill her, which was insane. I don't think he knew it was Lou. I think he knew she existed, but not that it was her. I know it's I don't feel like the book fully explained, which is why we're having this discussion. I don't feel like the book explained um what it was. I don't know if he knew that that was her, because I think that was the first time that she came back to Cesarine. I don't even know, to be completely honest with you, I don't even know if the Archbishop knew that he had a daughter until the whole play that Morgan and her coven put on, which is what made him just about shit his pants. So I don't know if he even knew he had a daughter. I don't know. You don't know. It doesn't, you know, it's kind of one thing to, and now, as we all know, spoilers, the Archbishop is dead. He was killed by Reed at the end of the book for other things that we'll get into. So that whole, you know, the whole Archbishop thing could be such a much deeper character than we even realized, based on information that we weren't really given, and we have to kind of put in ourselves or kind of guess. It's been over a month since I read the book, so I'm trying to remember the details. I know that's why I went through last night and kind of rewrote things down, because I finished it about a week ago. And I'm one of those people that if I go, I read a book for the content. So if I have to come on here and like talk to you about names of people, I'm like, I don't remember what her name is. I don't remember what her name is. Like, it's in my head as I'm reading, but then I get done and there's specific details that I don't. So that's why I had to go through and write it down. So Archbishop is Lou's father. Morgan is Lou's mother, which we knew from the beginning. So let's talk about Morgan. First of all, crazy ass bitch. Which was kind of another twist of fate, she has zero feelings for Lou, other than the fact that she seduced the Archbishop to create Lou to have both lines. You know, you have like the line of the holy and the line of the witches. You have both lines there. She created this into one being to sacrifice her to the goddess, to because with Lou's death comes the death of all, well, I want to say it's all males associated with the King Augustus line, who the king and that whole royal bloodline is who have been killing off the witches for years and years and years, hundreds of years. So she basically created Lou as a sacrificial thing for when to die when she was 16. Lou escaped the knife, ran away to Cesarine. That was 2 years ago, and now she is facing the same fate again after Morgan comes back. And then you find out that Morgan doesn't give a shit about her, which is heartbreaking. Because you have this daughter who just wants to be loved by someone. She loses her husband because he finds out she's a witch. Her friends are nowhere near her, so all she has is her mother. And her mother is like, I really don't give two shits about you. I just created you as a sacrificial plaything to save the rest of my coven. So I don't really... So she is just in like a world of shit all the time. And it is just horrible, and it makes me really sad. So we have Lou, we have Reed, we have the Archbishop, we've got Morgan. Coco, so Cosette, is Lou's best friend. I adored Coco. I felt like she was the perfect best friend for Lou. They bantered, they fought, they loved each other fiercely, but I feel like she told it as it was. You know, they were witches from two totally different covens. Um, Lou, or Coco, being a blood witch, so, or a Dame Rouge, I think is what the name of that was. So, I loved Coco, and I loved her role in the entire thing. Okay, let's kind of talk a little bit. So, okay, coffee, gotta. So you've got Coco, then you've got Ansel, which is kind of like the counterpart to Coco. And which it didn't really mean to be originally. Originally, you had Jean-Luc and Reed, which were best friends. Jean-Luc was a chasseur who was also Reed's best friend and competitor, and he kind of turned into a dickwad as the story went on, and as Reed had to get married to this witch, and he kind of found out who she was, and he had an inkling about what she was, and Reed was becoming smitten with her, and Jean didn't like that, so he kind of became a dick as it went forward, and he kind of had his own skeletons in the closet. So Ansel comes in, who is this adorable 16-year-old little initiate who just basically was tasked with following Lou around to keep her out of trouble. And, you know, he's honorable, he's sweet, he tries to be protective of her, but he's just like scared shitless. I really, really adored Ansel. I thought that he was a great character, and the way that he adores Coco throughout the entire thing was so cute. I thought that Ansel was a great character and kind of a great contrast, because you have like this fiery energy constantly between Lou and Reed all the time, whether it's fiery with passion or fiery with I'm gonna kick your ass. And then you just got Ansel, who's just like this sweet little pixie dust over in the corner, like, I'm just this innocent little person. And he knew way, way, way before Reed did that Lou was a witch, and he kept his mouth shut, and I just thought he was adorable. I thought he was the cutest thing ever. Let me see what we got here. Excuse me. So one of the notes that I had down was the dynamics between Lou and Reed were, I thought, perfect. You know, you have what I said earlier. You have Lou, who's strong-willed, sassy, fiery, stubborn, wild, loudmouth. She's got a filthy mouth. She's just like this very crass woman. And then you have Reed, who is disciplined. He's caring in his own way. He struggles with anger issues, which are definitely brought out by Lou. He's kind of prudish. He's extremely hard on himself. He worries about what other people think, whereas Lou does not give two shits who's looking at her or why. And so those polar opposites come together in such a way that it just made me want to read more. I really, really loved the combination of Lou and Reed. I did. I adored them. So a couple of the issues that I had with the book, and if you guys have anything to add at any time, please feel free to add things as I'm just kind of rambling through notes and kind of doing a little bit of discussing. Because you guys know me, I'm going to like jump back and forth through the book and the beginning of the book and the end of the book and all kinds of stuff. So a couple issues. Well, there's not really a couple. I didn't have a ton of issues with the book. I felt like the beginning, while I was very drawn in to the beginning, I wasn't, it really picked up in the middle. Like the middle, probably like 100 pages in, is when I really felt like most of it was like after Lou and Reed got married, their bantering and their interactions with each other was what really progressed the story, at least for me. And it wasn't just them falling in love, it was them learning about each other, and it was learning with each banter they had who Reed really was and who Louise really was. And I felt like, you know, the beginning, which with anything is a tiny bit slow going, but not enough to where it was like, no, I have to DNF this. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the entire book. I just felt like it picked up more like 100 pages in and on. But one of the things that I had a hard time with it, but I also didn't. So I think any of us ladies here kind of have a soft spot, at least for me. Hold on okay, so I agree. I read the first couple of chapters and left it for a while, then came back to it, and the rest of the book made me feel like not putting it down. Exactly. I did too. The first time I read it, like I read the first 2 chapters and then I took a nap. And then I read like the next chapter and I put it down. And so it took me, like I said, about 100 pages. And then I would read like 100 pages at a time. It's like I couldn't get enough of what was happening. But it took me, and there was actually somebody else that commented yesterday that said, I read the first chapter and I couldn't get into it. And I have a really hard time with that because I feel like with any book, it's each person's prerogative, but for me personally, I have to give a book at least a couple chapters, if not more, to get going before I can put it down. Before I can say, nope, this isn't what I want, this isn't good, because especially with Serpent and Dove, I think people are doing it a huge disservice by only reading the first chapter, because the meat of the story takes place later. I do like romance that begins with conflict or the characters knocking heads before they fall in love. That's a great way to build tension instead of just jumping into road. Abso-fucking-lutely. I am a huge proponent for having couples that hate each other that end up kind of coming around and loving each other. There's a lot of stories, like one of my favorite books series that I read of the year was the Court books, The Court of Thorns and Roses. And I won't give that away, but if people haven't read it, but the main characters that hate each other, that turn into this passionate whirlwind of hate turns to love, especially if it's slow burn, is life. I love that kind of romance. Now, having said that, I did feel, especially with the second book coming, and I know that she had to continue, I hate saying this, but I kind of feel like they did fall in love with each other a bit fast, even for it being a slow burn, if that makes any sense. Like, I felt like they went from hating each other, especially from Lou's perspective, being a witch, hating a witch hunter, and hating everything that they stand for. And, you know, and then, I don't know, I just felt like they went from being like head over heels in love a bit quickly. And maybe it was because they were both lonely. We all knew from the beginning that Reed was horny. Like, they came right out and was like, yeah, he's got some issues with this whole celibacy thing. So a lot of those kind of feelings of lust may have had something to do with it. I don't know. I have a hard time because half of me is like, no, it was perfect, and then the other half of me is like, well, I feel like they fell for each other this like a little bit fast. Yeah, I agree. It could have simmered a little bit longer. It could have, and I know the book is already relatively thick, you know, and I feel like she packed a shit ton of content in there, and so Reed and Lou had to be at a point where they were head over heels for each other by the time the ending happened, where Lou got captured and he found out she was a witch. And then he had to make this decision, okay, am I going to save my wife, or am I going to go let her burn because she's a witch and that's her place? And so it was like, Do I love her enough to overlook the fact that she's a witch? Do I not? And to kind of um, to read to read his dialogue and his thought processes, I think were amazing. And I know that they had to be at that point, because if they didn't fully love each other and they weren't head over heels by that point, then I feel like his decision would have been much different. I don't know. There was one of the things that Emma Books had said when she reviewed this that drove her crazy, and she said that um, they used the term husband and wife way too quickly, especially in their own internal monologue. You know, when they're speaking or when they're having their own thoughts and they're like, my husband or my wife, especially at the beginning when they hated each other, the fact that they used that terminology so quickly drove her crazy. I see where she's coming from, but for me, I feel like this is a time period where once you get married, marriage is a very, it's a very holy thing. And so I feel like it was kind of like, no, like once we're married, like this is my husband. Like legally, he is my husband. So I'm going to use that terminology because I have to get used to it. So it really didn't drive me crazy, but I did see where she was coming from with that. Um, but yeah, really, other than, you know, the slightly slow beginning, because it was a bit slow. Um, and the slight quickness of the going from and it's not even that they hated each other, because they did, but they hated what they were. You know, it's like, yeah, Reed didn't know that she was a witch, but she was a filthy begging thief, which he looked down on. And, you know, he called her a heathen. She was excuse me, a complete polar opposite of Celine, was who he wanted to marry, who he proposed to, and she said no. So she was nothing like who he actually was in love with. And then Lou marrying a witch hunter who killed generations of her coven and who would undoubtedly kill her if he found out. And so the fact that they were able to look past that and fall for each other kind of as quickly as it did was just kind of, it was what it was. I liked it, but I didn't at the same time. I don't know. I don't feel like Shelby could have done it any other way, because then the book would have been like another 100 pages long, and then it's too drawn out. So, so let's talk about the big ol' fucking twist at the end of the book. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. When you find out that Mr. Chazer himself, Reed motherfucking Diggory, is a witch. Reed is the first male ever to have been known to possess any kind of magic, any kind of powers, and the fact that he is of this holy order and has been killing witches for as long as he has, to come up and be like, oh my god. Because one of the other twists of the book, spoilers, is that Madame LaBelle, the owner of the Belle Rose, which is basically in layman terms a whorehouse, she is a witch, which you kind of find out, you kind of suspect, but you find out about partway through the book. She's a witch, and he is the illegitimate son, just like, so he's the illegitimate son of King August, or Augusta, or whatever you got going on there with your Frenchness. So you have the king, you have Madame LaBelle, illegitimate child is Reed. So now he's a witch, but he would also die if Lou was sacrificed, because he has the royal blood running through his veins because of the king. So, holy shit. Hang on here. Did not expect that Reed being a witch. There were no inklings of that. There really weren't. Which I thought was really awesome, the way that she did that. Because that was the absolute last thing. I actually, when they were doing the scene of Reed, seeing that golden line between the Archbishop and Lou, and knowing in his heart that if he severed that line, meaning he killed the Archbishop, Lou would live. So I reread that over and over. I'm like, he's seeing a golden line. He's seeing a pattern. Why would he be seeing a pattern? He's a holy man. Like, I don't understand. And then I'm like, oh my God, Madame Labelle is his mother and she's a witch. What? It's just like she freaking throws twists and turns at you every chance she gets. But she does it in a really great way where I feel like, other than that, because that wasn't really, I mean, I guess there was a build up to that, finding out who his mother was. But other than that, there really wasn't. That one was one of them that there wasn't anything leading up to it at all. And you're just like, holy shit. Oh my God, that's Nutter Butters. Yeah, so how that's going to play out, not only in the next book, which is Blood and Honey. So not only in the next book, how that's going to play out with whether or not he's going to actually develop these powers, because I feel like the only reason he saw it was because of his love for Lou and how much he wanted to save her. He was grasping at straws, which is what brought that out in him. But his internal monologue, you know, what is that going to do to him as a person, knowing that he has this one side of him that's a witch hunter, which he kind of is going to have to forsake at this point because he's about to go live with a bunch of witches to be with his wife. And then you have the other side of you. It's like, well, you've been killing your own kind, basically, for the last how many years. So, I'm looking forward to the next book. More info on Coco. Yes, I'm really excited to learn more about the Dame Rouges. I feel like the Blood Witches. I don't know why, but I would much rather read about and learn about the Dame Rouges, the Blood Witches, than the La Dame Blanches or whatever. Basically, Lou's coven. You know, they're just, I feel like, a bunch of power-hungry assholes. And the other ones, they kind of, the way they explain them, remind me a lot of, like, voodoo priestesses of the South. You know, very, I'm just saying, when I looked up, you know, pictures and stuff, I never really, but they have Coco as a black woman, and I'm like, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially I feel like a lot of what they do is very voodoo-esque. And so I feel like a lot of that, especially here in America, takes place down in the South, and it's more of like an African-American, it's gone. But I feel like voodoo, while there are us white folk that practice voodoo, it's kind of more common among, so I just think that that's going to be super interesting to read about, and also really interesting because the covens do not get along whatsoever. So to bring in Lou into this other coven is going to be really interesting. Yes, I hope they go to Coco's coven for sanctuary in the next book. Sounds like that's where they're going. I also struggled with the French, by the way. I did. I struggled. I just kind of would like bypass words. I'd kind of assume I knew what they meant. But I liked how she did that. I did say, now, with me not being a French-speaking person or taking any French whatsoever, I did like the addition of the different French terminology and the words and everything, because I felt like it gave you more of like an ambiance of the setting than if she left them out. I really enjoyed her writing style and how she went about it. So I guess that was kind of, so, and you guys are more than welcome to write anything else down that you want discussed or you want talked about, because I would love to talk about other things. I feel like for me to wrap this up in terms of my thoughts of Serpent and Dove, So it was one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I've been looking forward to it since like February or March, and it came out in September. So, or beginning of October. I don't remember. I think it was September. It was September. So, came out, was super excited about it. Um, I feel like for the most part, it lives up to the hype that everybody's giving it. I really enjoy it. Was one of, I have to say, it was one of my favorite witchy reads that I've read in a long, long time. I think that they did the magic system extremely well. I don't think that she skimped out on anything. I feel like I loved the lore. I loved how she built up the magic system. I loved the different covens. I loved the fact that there were different witches. I loved the whole grid seeing. Like I adored how she did all of that. I felt like the beginning was a tiny bit slow to get into, but it was also really interesting, and I felt like it kept me going in her writing style and what was happening and what she was, the different events in the ring. We didn't even talk about the fact, the ring that was forged in the same place as their swords. So they basically have the same magic in them, which is insane. Um, I loved Lou and Reed. They are one of my favorite couples. I'd have to say one of my, like, in the top 3 of my favorite couples of the year. I'm very, very excited about Blood and Honey. I loved the twists. I felt like there were more twists and turns in this book, and more times that I had to go back and reread once, twice, 3 times over something to make sure that I absolutely understood what she was saying. She's like, okay, so what I just read is that Lou is the Archbishop's daughter. Holy fucking shit, and kind of stop and think to myself, okay, I have to like rethink everything. This book really made me think hard about not only what was happening, but about the past. And like, okay, well, if the Archbishop is her daughter, or Jesus is her father, then this, and this is totally changed now. Everything that I thought about him is different, or everything that I thought about Reed is now different because of who his parents are, or, everything about it's just, she did an amazing job with everything. And come on, can we talk about this cover? I'd have to say, this is the prettiest cover. This is the most beautiful book that I have picked up in a long time. For sure of the year. I'd have to say, like, prettiest book of the year goes to Serpent and Dove, because this cover is just fucking fire, if you know what I'm saying. I thought the cursed people that were being tested on was unexpected. Oh yes. Yes, that part, that that was a little messed up. I did really like how she put a lot of that darkness into the book. She wasn't afraid to swear. She wasn't afraid to be really dark. Upstairs in the Archbishop's, or in the, I can't remember what that place is called now. It would gone. But upstairs, there's like this room where all of these people are, and they're basically using them. They're people that have undergone witches' curses, and they're going to die anyway, and so they are using these, they're doing tests on them to try to figure out if something is going to work on witches. Like, they need to find out the perfect formula for this. I completely forgot about that. For this serum to inject into a witch to keep her still, to paralyze her, but also keep her alive so that they can burn her alive at the stake, which is crazy. It's insane. Or how about, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to stop soon. But how about when the whole part when Ansel did find out that Lou was a witch, when she traded places with one of her coven sister, was it a real sister? It wasn't a real sister. Who the hell was it that she traded places with? It was from her cousin, or her coven. I want to say that she called her sister because it was a coven member of hers who knew who she was, and she allowed Reed to capture her, and she burned at the stake, and it was Lou's fault. And she used her magic to trade places with this witch. And so basically Lou has already burned alive once and then lived through it, which was insane. Like, that just kind of also goes to show what kind of a person Lou was. You know, yeah, she was a, you know, loudmouth bitch, but in a good way. But she was also very loving and very caring, and she really did care for people. You know, she didn't want to see her coven sisters burned. She didn't want to see witches burned anymore. She just didn't want to be a part of it because her mother was trying to sacrifice her to save everyone, which Lou was not about. So all in all, so I have to say that I can't give the book a 5 out of 5. And the reason for that is, I'd have to say, maybe I can go out of 10. Maybe out of 10. I don't know. I guess we can do out of 5. I can't really give a book a 5 out of 5 because in order for me to give a book a 5 out of 5, which I think I actually did give it a 5 on Goodreads, because I don't think that there were half stars. But there are other books of the year, like my Infernal Devices series, that kept me wanting more. I stayed up for long periods into the night reading these books, craving more. Now, there was one section of the book that I did stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning reading, because I was like, oh my God, right in the middle of the book, when like things are getting heated between Lou and Reed, and that made me want to stay up and reading more. But I felt like there were other books of the year that really kept me, that's all I thought about throughout my day at work. That's all I thought about, is I couldn't wait to get back to the book. And in order for me to give a book a 5, I have to, that's got to be part of it. So there are other books. There are other books that have it. I would give this 4.5, like just a half a step down. I would say 4.5 out of 5. You know, this is one of my favorite books that I've read this year. It is not my favorite book that I've read this year. I've read some really good books. You know, like I said, I'd have to say that like the Infernal Devices are up there in some of my favorite books of the year. And I want to do at the end of the year, I want to go back through books that I've read and kind of give you my top 5. But Serpent and Dove definitely lived up to the expectation that I had for it. I just felt like there were other books this year that I got into a little more deeply than I did Serpent and Dove, especially with it being a standalone book. I feel like if I would have read this book and Blood and Honey was already out, I would have immediately gone into that one. So that's hard, also knowing that you have another year, if not a little bit more, to wait for the next book. Amethyst said, I give it 4 out of 5 just because, like you said, it's slow at the start. I had to make myself read the rest to get into it. Also, I was confused by the French, but that was my problem. No, I mean, that's totally, I think that that's pretty reasonable, is going 4.5 out of 5. So that's kind of what I think I got there for this review of Serpent and Dove. So I definitely like it, and I definitely would recommend. I have been recommending this to everybody. I think especially if you enjoy witchy reads, or witchy reads, read. But if you enjoy books about magic and with a deeper magic system, and I highly, highly, highly would recommend this. And so I'm very happy that I read it. I adore it. It fell short when I had to compare it to other books that I've read this year, I guess is what I would have to say. So this is what I got. Before I go into the book that won for next year, is there anything else anybody would like to say? Are you guys happy with how this book review went? Do you like this discussion? Do you think that it was too long? Let me know what you guys think. If there's anything you'd like to change. I do kind of like this Sunday thing, and I kind of like the little bit earlier in the morning thing, because I feel like more people can come and we can sit in our jammies and drink coffee. But if there's anything about this you would like to change or like me to change, please let me know. So for our next one is going to be taking place November 10th, which is 4 weeks from today. I like it as it is. I'm in England and it's 4 p.m. now. See, that's perfect. I feel like when I go at night, people that are overseas have to wake up at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And so I like when it's a book discussion like this, and I feel like there are a little bit more of you that are from overseas can attend. So that's what I think. I wanted to limit myself to an hour so that, you know, if it goes short, it goes short, but we all know that I'm a rambler, and right now I'm at 56 minutes. So I want to keep it to about an hour. There's some books that we'll probably discuss a little bit more than others or have people chime in a little bit more. But I think for the most part, we kind of all agreed on Serpent and Dove and enjoyed it overall. So November 10th is our next one. It's 4 weeks from now. It's on a Sunday. We're going to keep the 10 a.m. time frame. Between the two, we had Heartless by Marissa Meyer and Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I had 17 votes for Heartless and 21 votes for Scythe. So Scythe is your winner for next month's book review, live book club goodness. So the nice thing about Scythe is it has been out for a while. Actually, Scythe is here. Thunderhead is the second book, which I will probably in like the next, not this next one because we're reading this one, but the next book or the next month, I'll probably have the sequel as one of the books that you guys are able to vote on along with something else. And the third book is coming out for this year. So the nice thing about Scythe is if you don't own it already, you can get it relatively cheap. I got mine, I think, on Thrift Books for like $3.99. So it's not a new release by any means, but it has been getting ridiculously amazing reviews by everybody that's been talking about it. And I've been really excited, and I kind of, in my heart, hoped that this is the one that was going to win. So pick up your copy of Scythe by Neil Shusterman, November 10th at 10 a.m. It's a Sunday. We will meet and discuss this one, and 24 hours in advance, so from November 9th to November 10th, I am going to have up the next 2 books on my Instagram story here on I don't know if I'll do it here on YouTube, but probably on my Instagram story and on my Facebook for you guys to vote on what you want for your next book. I missed it. Hi. So this is what I got. So thank you guys very much for joining me today to talk about the wonderful Serpent and Dove by Shelby Morin. She said how to pronounce her name and I can't remember. If you guys did like it and you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook, you can give her a little shout out and tag her because she has been amazing and has responded to everything that I've tagged her in on this book. She is a fabulous person, and I'm really excited for her next book to come out. And now I'm really excited because I finished this, and because of you guys, I never started anything else, waiting to see what we were going to read next. So now I can finally start Scythe tonight, and I'm very excited about that. So thank you guys for hanging out with me and for doing this cute little book review. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, whatever, you can either get a hold of me on Facebook or on Instagram or leave a comment down below. If you have any suggestions on anything that you'd like to change or the way that we did anything, you can also let me know. I'm open to all kinds of suggestions, especially since it's our first time doing this. And maybe there'll be even more of you that will come and hang out next time once we get this rolling a little bit more. And don't worry, especially with it being October, I will get out some witchy videos and some crafty videos before the month is up because it is Halloween time and Samhain time and we all want those wonderful magical crafty things. So All right, 59 minutes and 50 seconds. Here we come. We're going on up an hour, so I'm going to get going so I can go upstairs and have my lunch. So I love you guys very much, and I will see you very soon. Have fun reading Scythe.